Dave Palumbo here with another RX Muscle news update. This just in, Shawn Rhoden has passed away. That is the 2018 Mr. Olympia. Shawn Rhoden has died. Just got word and confirmation from Chris Aceto, his coach, that he has passed. The cause of death is unknown at this point. There is speculation that it was heart-related, but there's no definitive cause yet. I'm sure an autopsy will be performed. Once again, in a year or two of just death after death after death, these reports are very difficult for me to do, especially when I have relationships with some of these athletes that have passed on us. Obviously, Shawn Rhoden, one of the most gifted bodybuilders of our modern time, won the 2018 Mr. Olympia and probably would have won several more had he not been involved in a criminal investigation case surrounding, a woman that he was involved with. And this case still was pending, and I think these rape allegations that were out there were going to be settled within the next couple of months. And Shawn was at least looking the biggest I had ever seen him. I mean, at the Olympia, Chris Aceto told me he looked like he was every ounce of 300 pounds and pretty lean at that. And so we were obviously expecting, if Shawn would have been cleared, at the court case, to see him on a stage. And from what I understand from Chris Aceto, he was planning to do not just the Olympia, but multiple shows throughout the year once the case was settled. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. It's a terrible, terrible news. I know Shawn's got children and loved ones and lots of friends. I know Jay Cutler had trained with him recently within, I think, the last month or two, and said that it was the biggest he had ever seen him, and that Shawn was planning to make a big comeback in a big way. I don't know what to say, when something like this happens, because it's unexpected. It's similar to the George Peterson situation. I don't think anyone expected anything like this to happen to Shawn. Shawn was, as far as I know, was in good health. He went to the doctor, he got his checkups. Obviously he was under a lot of stress, these last couple of years with this pending case. And, stress is, they say stress is the number one killer. I don't know if that's what the problem was or that's what did him in the end. But all I can say is my prayers go out to his family. I remember once when this was in 2012, I was out in Australia doing a tour of the countryside, making appearances for Species Nutrition. And Shawn was there for the Australia Grand Prix, which then went on to become the Arnold Classic. And we were hanging out and, walking around and going to restaurants and stuff like that. And he was just like, Shawn loved to travel. He loved to just go to different places and experience it. And you know what the funny thing was? He was walking around all by himself. And I just, we kind of bumped into each other in some kind of restaurant, and we kind of just sat down and we were talking. And that's the kind of guy Shawn was. He could sit and talk to anyone. He was just like a nice guy. He loved bodybuilding. He's very quiet, and I think a lot of people took that like, well, maybe, maybe he really wasn't so into the sport, or maybe he was kind of like, Shawn loved bodybuilding. That's all he wanted to do from a little kid, and he loved the whole Flexitron, nickname he had, and he really wanted to be involved in the sport. And I have to believe that the last 3 years that he kind of was pushed out of the sport until, supposedly after his case was settled, which seems to be like the never-ending case, he was very upset and hurt him very deeply. And I don't, Shawn kind of keeps his emotions, inside, and he was the kind of guy that just wouldn't just go out there and just spout out what he was thinking. But it hurt him that he couldn't do what he loved to do, and especially defend his Olympia title. I mean, imagine going to the Olympia as a former Olympia champion and never losing your title and not able to get up on stage and defend it. So that hurt him tremendously. And stress like that, and internalizing a lot of stress, is not necessarily the best thing for you. And as I was sitting here trying to think about what to say about Shawn Rhoden, I said to myself, how would Shawn Rhoden want to be remembered when it was all said and done? I say that sometimes about myself, how do I want to be remembered? But how would Shawn Rhoden want to be remembered? And I think if he was sitting here with me or sitting on my shoulder right now and talking to me, whispering in my ear, he would say, I want to be remembered as someone who gave their heart and soul to the sport of bodybuilding to be the best that I could be on stage and give the fans the greatest show that I possibly could, to show them that, this was in my soul and I'm an artist and here's my art. Look at me. this is what I've worked my whole life for. And thank you for appreciating it. And that's all he really wanted. I think at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? We want validation as to what, all the hard work that we do in life, or whatever we apply ourselves to, that our peers will validate us and say, you know what, you did good. Because at the end of the day, the money to me is meaningless. It's what the people that we love and our friends and in entertainment, I guess you could say, the fans, what they believe or what they see out there is something that made them feel special inside. So if we can look at Shawn Rhoden and say, hey, he made us feel good. That's what bodybuilding's about. That's what I'd like to look like. That's something that gave me joy as a bodybuilding fan, or as a supporter of the sport, or as a bodybuilder myself. Then you know what? Shawn did his job. And I can only say that Shawn validated us all. Because when I watched him up there beating some of the champions that he beat and displaying the physique that he had with all the genetic, gifts and all the hard work that he put in there and all the obstacles that he overcame, at the end of the day, I felt good. I feel good watching Shawn up there, and he made me feel good. And that's what Shawn really wanted. And I'm sure that's what he would want his life to be defined as, separate of what obviously his relationship was with his family and children, but as a professional and what he did, his craft, his art, that's what Shawn would want to be remembered as, someone who moved fans and people emotionally with the physique that he built and displayed on stage. And he'll always be Mr. Olympia. Like Dexter Jackson told me, he goes, doesn't matter. I'll always be Mr. Olympia. And same thing for Shawn Rhoden. He only won it once. Wasn't had the opportunity to do it again, but you know what? He'll always be Mr. Olympia. And it's just a shame that this had to happen the way it did. And once again, I send my condolences and my prayers and all the love in my heart out to Shawn's family and friends and loved ones and children, because this is a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's a tough one. I spoke to Chris Aceto on the phone for about 20 minutes prior to doing this, and he was very, very broken up as well, because once again, very unexpected, and the guy was a well-liked guy in our industry, and that's really what he's going to be remembered as, a very well-liked, genetically blessed bodybuilder who really never got the chance to show how great he was. Thank God he was at least able to win that one Mr. Olympia title in 2018 and prove that he was Mr. Olympia worthy, because he had the physique and he had the tools to be Mr. Olympia multiple times, and he's going to be remembered for that. And that's all we can do, is take a moment of silence and remember Shawn, send our prayers out, and let's support our sport. We've lost a lot of good ones recently, and it hurts to the core, especially when you're a person who's spent a lot of time with a lot of these guys and you know them personally. And I think a lot of you, the fans, know these guys personally too, because you're watching their social media, you're watching their YouTube channels, you're following along in their daily story of their life and the trials and tribulations. And so, in essence, we're all connected. It's one big soap opera. So, once again, remember Shawn Rhoden, and I think that at the end of the day, he'll be remembered as a great champion. Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle News Update.